5 hosts.
5 opinions.
5 fearless debates.
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GBNews.
the People's Channel?
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome along to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. Well, this is happening right now. Well, The Telegraph and The Independent are leading with President Trump's threat to intervene in these massive protests in Iran. Will we follow suit? Plus,
variety of blue English cheese traditionally accompanies port.
Leicester.
Stilton.
never gets old. So, well, he's scrapped jury trials, and now David Lammy wants teenagers to sign up as magistrates. He's encouraging them to do it. So, you could be sent to prison by an 18-year-old, apparently. How do you feel about that? Also,
these barbarities have taken place in at least 50 towns.
this is a big breaking news story this evening, actually. So, child rapists, including, obviously, rape gang members, will be locked up for the rest of their lives. That is a new policy announced by Reform this evening. So if Reform win the election, well, then that's it. Mandatory life sentences, apparently, for child rapists. You in favour of that? Also, I'm going to reveal how rats helped us fight the Nazis. OK, all right, loads on tonight, including, by the way, can I just say quickly, a story on the front of the Daily Telegraph, which is that Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, the headline is this: Whitty, drink bleach and water in blackouts. Do you remember when Trump said about injecting bleach, and it was all... I wonder if we're going to end up with Dettol or whatever these companies now coming out going, actually, don't drink bleach, actually. Probably not, because it's Chris Whitty who said it. Anyway, joining us this evening is journalist Linda Jubilee. We've also got broadcasting royalty Christophe Woufas and Labour MP Barry Gardner. But right now, before we get stuck into the fresh headlines, let's get those news with Katie Bowen.
Good evening. Your latest news headlines from the GB newsroom. Swiss authorities say that the fire which killed 40 people at a ski bar in Crans-Montana appears to have started from sparkler candles placed in champagne bottles. Authorities have given an update on the tragedy today, confirming 71 of the injured are Swiss nationals, 14 are French and 11 Italian. The death toll currently remains at 40, with at least 119 people injured. Photos emerged earlier today, seeming to show the moment the ceiling of the Constellation bar set alight. Officials have described the fire as a tragedy for the whole of Europe. A former pupil of a British school has been identified as among the missing. Charlotte Nidham previously attended Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire. Most of the victims of the fire thought to be young people, but identification of the bodies is expected to take several days. The driver of a car involved in the fatal car crash which injured boxer Anthony Joshua in Nigeria has been charged with dangerous driving. The Ogun State Police Command have released a statement saying that the driver of the Lexus SUV, 46-year-old Adeni Mobolaje Coyote, has been charged. Joshua has been discharged from hospital. The two men who died were his close friends and team members, Sina Gami and Latif Ayodele. President Donald Trump has told Iran that the US is locked and loaded and will intervene if Tehran kills any more anti-regime protesters. It comes as at least 6 people have been confirmed dead on the 5th day of spreading unrest across Iran. A severe economic crisis has sparked violent protests in cities across the country, the biggest protests in the last 3 years. Riot squads in Tehran have opened fire on demonstrators who pledged they won't back down. An Islamist murderer who took a prison officer hostage has been awarded a £240,000 taxpayer-funded payout. Fuad Awali was transferred to a special separation unit for the country's most dangerous prisoners after he and another convict ambushed a jail worker and threatened to kill him. Awali used Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights to claim that his segregation, designed to prevent him harming officers and radicalising inmates, had breached his right to a private life. Justice Secretary David Lammy has now agreed to pay £7,500 in compensation and £234,000 in legal costs after the convicted killer stated he had suffered severe depression. And snow has hit Britain, covering large parts of London, Hertfordshire, Northamptonshire and Cambridgeshire. A yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place for sections of the UK. Meanwhile, an amber snow warning for northern Scotland is also in place. Travel disruption is expected as the wintry weather moves southeastwards. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
Welcome along to Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition. Let's get you the very first look at Saturday's newspaper front pages. And we're starting with the Daily Mail. Girl from UK school missing in Swiss fire. Yeah, so look, it's another devastating development in that horrific fire that ripped through that Swiss chalet nightclub there. The Sun, start of the inferno. So videos are now emerging online, well, obviously, of the start of this fire. One of the things that stands out there, I must say, is how clearly nobody there thought it would ever get to the stage that it ultimately did. Excuse me. But there's a lot of people, when the fire starts, standing filming it, and you just think, you know, there was probably, on reflection, there was about a 30-second window to get out, wasn't there? And, you know, it's just devastating to think they had no idea how bad that fire was going to get. The Eye. Tougher Brexit border checks to trigger delays as Portugal U-turns over queue chaos. I'm quite keen to talk about this, actually, because I am yet to really see these mythical e-gates. We have them, so if you're coming into Britain, you can use the e-gate from an EU country. They don't seem to be particularly keen to let us do them. So there's that. The Daily Express, get a grip on social care crisis. That's what they are leading with. Also, we've got The Telegraph. Right, now, The Telegraph, I think, again, just because, again, I don't understand why every national newspaper doesn't do this. They put loads of different stories on the front page, which for most of the time, in my view anyway, gives them the best front page of the day. But they've got Trump set to step in over Iran protests. So what's going on in Iran? Looks like they're going to overthrow the regime over there. Probably Trump might step in. But they've got some other great stories here as well. Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer, has said mixing a small dose of bleach with dirty water and drinking low-alcohol beers are among Sir Chris Whitty's tips on how to survive a national blackout. I mean, a bit weird, that. Why does Whitty think we should drink bleach? The other story they've got there is that David Lammy, the headline is David Lammy wants teenagers to sign up as magistrates. The Times, ex-pupil at UK school among the ski bar missing. It's the same front page as The Sun, I think it was, or The Mail, sorry, same front page as The Mail. The Independent, Trump, US locked and loaded to back the protesters in Iran. The Mirror, New Year party inferno, and their tagline there, their headline there is heartbreaking, which of course is The Guardian. Sparklers, quotes, started Swiss bar fire that took 40 lives. I think we're going to see, I mean, anyone who's ever been to, you know, kind of been out in that part of the world and will know that it is very common for people to stick sparklers in drinks and all of that stuff as a way of celebrating. I would imagine that we're probably on the brink of seeing some kind of law change over there, I would have thought, but there we go. Right, let's go to my panel, because the story that we're actually... is not on any of the front pages, but we are going to lead this show with, is a story that broke a little while ago, about an hour or so ago, and it's a new policy by Reform, and it's this. Child rapists, including rape gang members, will be locked up for the rest of their lives under a Reform government. That's what they're saying. They're going to introduce a tough new law and order policy. Nigel Farage's party said it would impose mandatory whole-life sentences for adults convicted of child rape if it wins the next election. And they say it would ensure that those put away for the rest of their years are not eligible for parole. So...
They won't do it.
OK, go on.
And I think we can all see logically why they can't do it in that way. because there is a huge difference between some 50-year-old bloke grooming an 11-year-old girl and then having sex with her, and an 18-year-old who's been going out with a girl a year younger than him for the past 4 years, and who then technically has committed rape on a 17-year-old, somebody underage.
Well,
15, okay.
Yeah.
It's 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think everybody can see that those two things are not the same. So if you introduce a mandatory life sentence, you're treating them as the same. Now, I think many people will feel huge sympathy to the idea that people who are in the former category, the 50-year-old grooming the 11-year-old, nobody's got any sympathy with them.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's why judges have discretion.
It's a fair point. It's obviously they would have to tweak that law if they wanted to make it work in a practical sense that deals with cases like what Barry was saying there, which is someone who's just turned 17, their girlfriend is 15. Right, and and that's the school year apart. It's not that's not that uncommon or whatever, right? And then something happens. I get what you say, absolutely. So let's assume they find a way of tweaking that somehow. That means that we avoid a situation where that person spends the entire rest of their life in prison. I mean, some people might think they should, by the way. But anyway, broadly speaking, do you think this is a good idea, Chris?
I think broadly speaking, it's a brilliant idea. Taking on board what you're saying, Barry, and I think that Reform need to be careful that this doesn't become one of their big blue sky ideas with very little detail, and that's something that sometimes they need to be a bit careful on. However, if they can get over the nuances, if they can get over those exceptions, if you like, that Barry has pointed out, 100% the public would support this. If you have been someone who has systematically groomed, if you are someone that has groomed multiple, if you are someone who is part of a gang that has groomed multiple people, you should spend the rest of your life in prison or be deported. I don't know anyone with any sense that wouldn't agree with that.
It's deterrent, Linda, I suppose, isn't it? If obviously, I mean, yeah, you're right. If morality is not already a deterrent, which unfortunately it isn't for a lot of people, if the idea of serving even 20 years might be out in 11 or whatever it is not a deterrent to people. The idea of serving your whole life in prison, that could be the deterrent.
Definitely, but it's like Barry made a really, really good point about it. If you can't make it a mandatory term, that's the issue, and that's quite difficult technically to get around, isn't it? I think that you could handle it maybe in a sentencing guidelines. Yes, you could enshrine a certain. You could enshrine certain conditions that required a whole life tariff, and if those conditions are met, then they are jailed.
But for instance, it would be... Sorry to jump in, but for instance, more than one victim. Okay. I mean, if there was more than one victim, then it becomes it doesn't become the idea of it being a relationship.
We're talking also of heinous crimes, where 3-4-year-old children... I've covered those court cases when I was a young journalist.
Exactly.
They are horrific.
Let me put this to you, because this Labour government is looking at doing things, I think, like introducing, kind of anti-misogyny classes for boys and things like that. So I suppose in the light of that, there is a case for saying that if you are over the age of 16 and you do rape somebody who is under the age of 16, then you should have known better and you should serve a whole life tariff. I mean, the victim might think, I never want this guy out again.
Look, Patrick, this is where we can give examples and instances. This is why the law is so complex, and this is why discretion is important, because you talk about somebody who's underage being raped by a slightly older person, being raped by but technically, even if they're in love, it's rape.
Well, that's statutory rape.
And it's statutory rape. And this is the real difficulty. You come out with this big headline and everybody says, yeah, right on, mate. And then you think, well, hang on, it isn't that simple. Life is not all black and white.
No, and rape
I think
is particularly
absolutely
crime to deal with.
If you are saying, but if anyone is saying, if any of Reform are saying, look, the grooming gang members that we have seen should be subject to life sentences. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. No. They need to just work through the nuances that we've outlined.
Well, if they can do that, and I'm looking forward to hearing some more flesh on the bones of this in the next day or a couple of days or whatever, but if there is a way of them figuring this out, which basically means that they are going to be able at the next election to stand up and say, if you are part of the rape gangs or if you are, whatever, you will have a mandatory whole life tariff without any chance of parole whatsoever.
Or deportation.
Yeah, or deportation, then I think it would be a vote winner. I think it would be a vote winner.
Just on the deportation thing, you see, I want to be sure that anybody who commits a serious crime in this country actually suffers for it, pays a penalty in this country. You deport them, you send them back to wherever, Afghanistan or wherever it is that Christy is talking about. There's no guarantee they're actually going to serve a sentence out there. And that would be what worried me.
No, but they'd be gone from here, wouldn't they?
They would, but actually... I think it is important that people who commit crimes like that are punished for them.
Can I just give one more? Have we got time for one more tiny bit of detail on this? What is interesting is about they want the tough new sentences to actually apply to historical offences. So if they were to get elected, it says that they would cover grooming gangs, even though those criminals were usually sentenced according to the law at the time the offence was committed. So they want to retrospectively go back and potentially re-sentence those people. I don't know whether that's going to be possible.
When it comes to grooming gangs, I think, as you say, everyone would agree with that. But it's really hard to get convictions in rape now on an evidential basis. So how you would do it in historic terms when it's not a grooming gang situation, for example.
But I think what Krista is talking about here is if somebody is convicted of a crime that took place a few years ago, before they've brought this law in,
they would go back.
They would still have the new law apply to them.
Yeah. They'd have to go back to sentence.
They want to retrospectively.
Do they, or is it that people are being charged now for things that they can
Reform. Well, this is the detail. Reform wants its tough new sentences to apply to historical offences, meaning they would cover grooming gangs, even though criminals are usually sentenced according to the law in place at the time the offence was committed.
Right.
So
to be honest with you, I think that's fair enough. I think if you did something 20 years ago, bearing in mind the nature of what we're talking about,
2 years ago,
or 2 years ago, you should be, if reform, and you've not been caught yet, and you've not been charged yet, and the reform changed the law, and you get a mandatory whole life tariff.
Patrick, what does that do to society? It gives you a society in which nobody is sure at the point of them taking any action what the repercussions of that action would be.
Yeah, but it's that.
No.
It's that specific action.
No, because once you say that the law can be applied retrospectively, it becomes arbitrary. Dictators love that because they then say, right, I've decided this.
It's a specific offence.
Do you want to give that power to people, to our legislators?
I get what you mean. Look, I get what you mean. I wouldn't like it, if all of a sudden we had a government...
Suddenly parking offences are.
But think of how other... What's frustrating about this argument, and I get where you're coming from with it, but also there are so many areas of life nowadays, though, where we judge historical figures, Winston Churchill, people who are based on today's values on what they did years ago.
But we don't put them in prison. But we don't put them in prison.
When it comes to an offence like rape, we say, well, actually, back then you would only have got 2 years, so that's when we'll sentence you. So I think there's a disparity there.
OK, fine. Look, I'm just going to squeeze one in quickly, which you're looking at on your you were looking at on your screens right now, which was the Telegraph, because Lammy wants teenagers to sign up as magistrates. So... I'm going to read you the article, a bit of it anyway. David Lammy has launched a drive to encourage people as young as 18 to volunteer as magistrates to help tackle the court crisis. Now, as Barry pointed out in the previous show, you can already do this. I suppose it's the fact that he's launching a drive to do it, to encourage more, maybe make more people more aware of it. But, Krista, you pointed out another aspect to this story, didn't you, in the
fact that, of course, they are, in conjunction with this, trying to encourage people, is that they the magistrates will soon have the power to sentence sentence people to 18 months in prison. Now, I'm not sure what the maximum is now that a magistrate can sentence people to prison, but it's going to become 18 months. So that's quite a big responsibility.
Aren't they doing it for some kind of DEI reason or something?
Yes, that's also the other reason why they're doing it, is because they want to encourage underrepresented communities, and they feel that the younger that people are, the more likely there is that they will come from those communities from being a part of it. So the fear is, of course, that that's going to lead to potentially positive discrimination. If guidance has come from the Justice Secretary, look, we want more minorities and diversity, and we want more 18-year-olds, will they be the best ones for the job, or will they be chosen because of the fact that they tick a box?
Linda, your views on this?
I think 18 is simply too young. I think 16 is too young to vote. I think 18 is too young to be a magistrate. And I think a magistrate is so central to society, it's so important to British justice, that I can't imagine why you would do that for you know, try and get 18-year-olds to do such a job like that.
But, Linda, we already do. The point is it's not forcing them.
Yeah, but I'm not making that argument. Yeah. If we do, and if it's allowed and it's permitted, then it's already permitted. But what he is saying here is he will encourage more 18-year-olds. That's what I believe this story is about, and I think that's the wrong thing to do.
OK, all right, but look, as Barry makes the point, this thing already exists. You can already do it. It's just drawing attention to it. Right, now, coming up, there is this ridiculous story, which is Chris Whitty, who's like, remember, next slide, please. Anyway, he's back, and he thinks that you should be drinking bleach during blackouts. Now, I don't think these, by the way, are medical blackouts. These are national blackouts. These are if the lights go out.
It's when your water is contaminated. That's the point. And let's be clear, he's not saying drink bleach. And anybody who's watching this programme, please do not go off and get your Dettol or your anything else. No. And pour yourself a stiff one, right? This is about if your water is contaminated, dosing it with a tiny bit of bleach can make it drinkable in an emergency.
All right. Well, we'll talk more on this when we come back, of course. And also, we are monitoring the situation in Iran. It looks like it's getting even worse. It's going to continue to get even worse. Trump says he might get involved. Should we get involved? All of that when we come back.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
The National Trust has come under fire after declining a Catholic filmmaker's request to shoot a documentary at St Cuthbert's Cave in Northumberland. St Cuthbert's Cave was a crucial location for the film, as it's traditionally believed to be where the saint's body rested in 875 before he was moved to Durham, where it remains today. The Trust justified its decision by citing the project's religious affiliation, sparking accusations that the heritage charity has breached equality laws and is engaging in illegal religious discrimination. Well, I'm joined now by the filmmaker at the centre of the story, Christian Holden. Christian, thank you for coming in. So, first of all, tell me about St Cuthbert. Why do we mind about St Cuthbert?
Well, St Cuthbert, this historical figure, this great figure of the northeast of England and the Scottish borders area, was renowned for his physical prowess, for his great night vigils. I approached the National Trust to ask permission to film there, and the initial response I had from them by email was that they didn't host any filming of a religious or political nature. I made a phone call to that particular person and explained more about what we hope to do, and that aside from its religious storyline, there's also historical value to it, cultural.
And so you were making the case that St Cuthbert was a cultural icon as well as a religious icon in the northeast of England, a very important political as well as religious figure in the consolidation of Christianity in the northeast.
It's such a critical part of our culture and our heritage, particularly in that area as well. So I was bewildered to be refused to visit and film this site of such importance on the basis of essentially being a Christian filmmaker.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Right, OK, so, welcome back. Now, Brits will be urged to use pillowcases, bed sheets or coffee filters to make safe drinking water in the event of an extended UK blackout. Households will also be told to eat chilled or defrosted food before tinned items, well, obviously, but cook on camping stoves in the garden and make sure that family members receive enough nutrition. And those who aren't able to boil water or use purification tablets will be informed that they can use regular unscented household bleach, just a little bit of it, in that water to purify it. You might be wondering why we're talking about any of this. In fact, I am wondering really why we're talking about this. But the public health advice was revealed in scripts published by the government, which would be read out by the UK's chief medical officers, including, of course, Professor Sir, I think, Chris Whitty. It's on BBC Radio 2 and Radio 4. During a nationwide blackout. But can we? Is this clip I think that we're about to play here now is relevant, I believe, to this. These are some of the things that President Trump has said in the past, for which he got quite a lot of stick for.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
Yeah, so he got a lot of criticism for saying basically don't take Tylenol if you're pregnant because it can be linked to autism. There was also the one about when they were considering about bleach during the coronavirus pandemic, whether or not that killed the virus.
Well, he did also suggest that you should inject yourself with bleach, not diluted bleach, but bleach, which was actually medically not an advised procedure.
Not an advised procedure, no. But there is a wider point to this, which is why are we now being... Why is it now being revealed to us? What's going on? There's all this talk of World War III. There's all this talk about, and now we're talking about nationwide... Oh, in the event of a nationwide blackout. So, hang on a minute. Why?
Patrick, you're too young. You don't remember Protect and Survive. Linda, you're probably too young to acknowledge that you...
I am, actually.
Do you remember Protect and Survive?
The 3-day week and doing my homework by candle.
No.
He's conveniently ignoring the Labour years. He's talking about nuclear war.
I'm talking about the little pamphlet that we were issued with.
No, I don't remember that.
But that was the one that said, in the event of a nuclear war, you had to basically tape over the glass on your windows and hide under the table. I mean, it was just so ridiculous that this is what they were telling us.
But why are we so...
But why are they asking us now?
In those days, they're doing their best in that era to give some form of guidance to the public. Now, it's not so very different than putting an Anderson shelter in your back garden or whatever. You've just got to take some measures. But I do remember when we had the 3-day weeks, and I do remember what it was like not to have electricity when I came home from school. And my kids now can't believe that. They can't believe that actually happened in this country. And the fact of the matter is, as you rightly point out, Patrick, we are living in very, very dangerous times. We do have to understand all of this. One of my New Year's resolutions was to do a proper... This is after I cut my finger, look, with a fillet knife 4 days ago. To do a proper first aid kit. Everything is now in my
good idea.
Big kit, like they're not just a squidgy little one like that, a big proper first aid kit. Because I think, you know, you never know when you need it.
No, that's a really good idea, actually. Because then when you do need it, and that one thing you need isn't there, and you curse yourself, don't you? But why do you think would be...
And that is the story here. Why are they giving us information about what would happen during national blackouts? And, you know, you're quite right to point out, probably good advice when there's a Labour government, that we should be finding out what would happen during national blackouts. Because, you know, especially with Ed Miliband in charge of energy, I mean, that's probably more of a likelihood. But also, it's worrying that they're asking us or giving us this advice and preparing...
We're not doing it for no reason.
Can I suggest why they are doing it? And look, this is conjecture. We're all just surmising around the table here. But we know that there are cyber attacks on our strategic infrastructure.
Exactly.
We know that they have targeted... we can see what the Russians have done in Ukraine, constantly targeting their energy infrastructure. We know that the Chinese are also looking at the same tactics. And therefore, the government is hyper-conscious that new ways of waging war are not all on the battlefield.
Well, maybe not such a good idea to have a Chinese embassy over critical infrastructure cables then.
So talking of war, let's bring up The Independent, please, if that's OK. Yes, Trump, US locked and loaded to back protesters in Iran. So, well, look, as I'm sure you've all been aware, it's been kicking off in Iran, hasn't it? There are some clips of it knocking around as well. Tehran has warned Washington not to cross a red line after the president says that American forces are ready to intervene and help demonstrators as the regime is rocked by a major public revolt. The economy's basically collapsing, and that, you know, like so often does, obviously leads to massive civil unrest. But we all know that there are other undertones going on in Iran and have been for a very long time when it comes to civil liberties, women's rights, and ultimately the fact that they're led by an Ayatollah. So there is that, isn't there? Do we think this is actually the end of the Iranian regime, anyone? Because we feel like we've been here a bit before.
So what... I did get a text earlier on this evening from a security consultant, and because we were talking about the turning point would come when the Iranian Revolutionary Guard stayed inside their barracks. Now, he is saying to me that it will only take one battalion of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. If one battalion made a decision like that, the rest would fall in line. So, yeah, I started the evening thinking this is unlikely to turn the corner right now, but I'm not so sure that this couldn't be the tipping point.
Yeah. I mean, it's... The other thing is that, like, you kind of seen it a bit before. You've seen things like this a bit before.
Yeah, but don't you always see that? There is a build-up to these things. You're bound to see a couple of explosions like this.
The concern... I mean, look, I think the obvious concern is the way that the Ayatollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard react to this. You know, are we about to see just mass slaughter of civilians?
But what we can't...
Another Syria.
Yeah, but look, awful as that would be, I think what we can't do is give them a pretext to do it. And actually, I think Trump's, whilst he's saying he's locked and loaded and ready to intervene on the protesters' behalf, that gives to the regime the pretext of saying, you see, these people are backed by the Americans. These people are backed by the enemy. It's all insurgency. It's all foreign-inspired. It's not true Iranian people wanting a change.
Yeah.
And that it would be a big mistake, in my view.
But it would be a propaganda win for the
them.
regime. And I worry about these comments not perhaps considering that. Probably well-intentioned, but just not considering that. Because, and also so that's the one part of it. The second part is will we then be prompted to want to get involved to follow America, or will America ask us to in order to legitimise their involvement, as they did with Iraq? And the problem why I will never forgive Tony Blair, never forgive Alistair Campbell for that nonsense that we were fed about that, is that there may well be a credible threat from Iran. I think there probably is a credible threat from Iran. There have been credible threats from other places since then, but we always now have Iraq to fall back on, where we say, well, hang on, we were told about a credible threat before, and we got involved and we made a mess of it.
Compare the two. That's the issue here.
Well, we're scarred by it, aren't we? I agree with you. This is. I think that what's gone on with Iraq and Afghanistan is possibly going to cloud our judgment in future instances. Not that I'm saying that I think we should get involved with Iran. So something to bear in mind is that it was last year that MI5 released a statement saying talking about Iranian sleeper cells here in Britain. We know that. We've seen there was a guy called Vahid Beheshti who was camping for a while outside the Iranian embassy. People tried to kill him. People tried to kill him a lot, I think, actually, as it turns out. And we've also had a couple of other instances as well like that. We've also got a place in this country which is an Islamic centre in this country where the leader of that is appointed by the Ayatollah of Iran. So there are pockets of the Iranian Ayatollah's regime in Britain, and it's concerning about how this plays out here. And we don't know, and I don't want to preempt anything because at the moment nothing's happened. So, hopefully it's done.
We weren't safer as a result of Iraq or any of those wars. And there may well have been a credible threat. There may well be a credible threat now. But the problem is that what does it say? If you've got people who are Islamic extremists who want to feed the narrative that there is a jihad from the West and that the West hate Muslims and the West want to eradicate the Muslim world, well, us being involved in Middle Eastern countries is the perfect fodder for that. I mean, because you saw the July 7th bombers in 2005. They did videos saying, well, this is in response to the West doing all of this. So it's about whether long-term would we be safer, and I don't know that we would be.
I just think it would be absolutely delightful. We're going to move on from this, but I think it would be delightful if the Ayatollah wasn't in charge anymore.
Absolutely, he is 86, so he may not be anyway.
Well, that's right. Yes, that's true. That's true. But people with his mindset, anyway. And it would be interesting. I mean, the optimist in me says that it would only be a good thing for the Middle East and therefore the world, because it might see a reduction in things like funding for the variety of other terrorist groups in that region. What a different world that could be. But look, loads to get through. Coming up, Labour and the Lib Dems are planning a tactical voting strategy to stop reform in 2019. Excuse me, gosh. The other thing that I'm keen to discuss is actually on the front of the Sun. They have got a picture here of the moment that Swiss nightclub fire started. I'll reveal exactly what that is. Yeah, there you go. That appears to be pretty much the exact moment there where the sparkler catches the soundproofing. We're going to talk about this because videos are emerging which show people not getting out when they had the chance, really. And I'm certainly not blaming anyone at all. It's a devastating situation, but there is something about modern culture there, I think, which we should discuss. So that's when we come back.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to see accumulations over the highest ground, over the North York Moors, for example. But once again, inland areas will remain largely dry and bright throughout Saturday. A cold day, though. You will notice that chilly feel once again. Some areas not going to reach above 0 degrees degrees by day. So definitely a day to wrap up nice and warm. And we'll see further snow showers across northwestern areas into Sunday. Actually, it's going to be a drier day across the east on Sunday, but another very cold night on Saturday night, and therefore a very cold day throughout Sunday as well. We could see some more snow moving into the southwest once again. So further cold weather to come next week, and into Tuesday we could see some more potentially widespread snow.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition. Let's go straight to the Sun's front page, because actually several newspapers are leading with it, but the Sun has got kind of the picture, which you're looking at on your screens now if you're watching us on television or online. Start of the inferno. So this is the moment that the sparkler ignited the blaze that killed at least 40 people. And what it is, I'll describe it to you if you're listening on radio. It appears to be a lady on somebody's shoulders with sparklers in the top of 2 champagne bottles. There are other sparklers around as well, and it ignites what we believe is kind of foam soundproofing on the ceiling. So that's the moment that it started, we think. The other thing is, and we're not going to show you the video here because it's a bit grim, really, to be honest with you, but there is a video which shows this happening, and then it shows, roughly speaking, 40 to 50 people. Well, in fact, that's a clip from the video, right? And what you'll see there is that the ceiling is on fire, and then as that video plays on, pretty much all of those people in that picture there realise that the ceiling is on fire, and they don't really move. Now, I can understand it's New Year's Eve. You've probably had quite a lot to drink, and no one in their right minds would ever expect anything to get as bad as it is. And I'm absolutely not in any way, shape or form blaming anyone for anything. But there is an interesting point about modern culture here, which is that the initial reaction from a lot of people was to get their phones out and video the situation, when, with the benefit of hindsight, you actually, as it turned out, had about 30 seconds to a minute to get out of there. And I feel just incredibly sorry for all of these people, obviously, but it's yeah, I mean, you look at it and you just think, gosh.
I'll tell you what it's like. It's like when you're in a war zone or a conflict zone, and cameramen do this. They are oblivious to what's going on around them because they've got the viewfinder up against their head like that, and they become fixated on the image. And that's why the producer's always standing at their back for exactly this situation. But you are right. It's part of the modern era that smartphones meant that you just start filming stuff immediately. And sometimes in the nicest events, you miss the true beauty of the moment, don't you? Because you're too busy filming it. But what's happened here is, I think, that people have said that these kids were filming, and in a situation like this, and I'm told that the soundproofing on the ceiling was a big factor.
Yeah.
Such flammable material that they only had seconds to get out.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is these young people had a right to believe that they were in a secure place, and that even though something like this had started, it was not going to lead to the disaster that happened.
Absolutely.
Either because there would be people who were safety trained who would intervene and extinguish it, or because they didn't believe that it was so flammable that it would spread so quickly. And I think you made a really important point, Patrick, when you said that in no way should we be blaming these young people. They were young people doing what young people do on New Year's Eve, wanting to have a good time, right? That was their right, and they had a right to be safe in doing it. And what we really need to understand is who is responsible for those failures. And are we looking at the sort of situation that we had with Grenfell, where actually there are authorities who passed that flammable material, not just the people who put it in there, the owners of the event venue, but what are the restrictions, what are the regulations that should have prevented that disaster from happening?
I think as well, it's more of a kind of lesson to people, especially young people, if you are out and about and you're having a great time, and as we all love a bit, is if you do see something like this that starts, just get out, get out.
There is I'm a bit sort of disaster obsessed, and I don't mean to make that sound like sort of it's light-hearted, but I really sort of take a lot of time. I like looking up how things happened, and I'm very curious about that. And there is a case from 2003 called the Station nightclub in Rhode Island, and it is exactly like this. And it was filmed actually by someone in there who was there for a local news crew who were filming the band on stage. And the band started using pyrotechnics as part of their performance. And you see that the place goes up and they have about a minute before the flashover, and the flashover is when basically the fire goes overhead, and then that gives no chance of escape, and the black smoke is what gets people. And I urge anyone, it's a horrible view, and I warn people, but it's all on YouTube, and if you watched that, and I don't say watch it because it's fun, if you watch that, you will never, if you go to a venue like this again, not think about an escape route, because what people need to do is where are the exit? And my dad taught me this years ago, that when you go somewhere new, when you go to a restaurant, and especially in our age of terror and all these things, just take a moment when you arrive. How do I get out? How do I get out? Where is the nearest exit? How do I get out of here if something happens? Because what happened in the Station nightclub is exactly like this. There was one exit that everyone went for, and it wasn't actually it was the panic that killed people, because the exit, just like this, got completely gridlocked with people, and then no one could get out because it was rammed with people.
It's good advice. It's good advice. I mean, you have to think about it for security things generally, but...
And it's happened so many times in so many nightclubs where people think of the exit, and also all of this flammable material, and it's the flashover.
And so many of these places are in basements.
Yes.
Yes, especially if you are in any basement venue at all ever, just have a think about how I get out of there. Is there another exit other than the main exit?
And that Rhode Island one, 100 people died.
And 200 were injured.
Yeah, it's absolutely... And they knocked down, they raised it to the ground because it was such an awful tragedy. But they use it in fire safety videos now. They use it to train people.
And they changed the regulations as a result of it.
And so it's really important that young people know about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. All right, OK. Well, when we come back, we are going to be doing something a little bit different, OK? Something maybe a little bit more light-hearted. Not if you're a rat, but I'll tell you how rats helped us beat the Nazis. That's next.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Although not quite as cold as the UK, it is still rather unsettled at the moment across the Mediterranean. Storm Francis is bringing rather wet and windy conditions to the Canary Isles, Madeira and even mainland areas of Iberia. Further towards the east, we have further heavy rain and mountain snow that's going to be building across the Balkan region as we head into Saturday as well. These generally unsettled conditions are quite likely to continue as we head throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
OK, we're going to finish with a story that's quite literally a banger. Yes, so a new book reveals that the British intelligence services used rats to fight the Nazis during World War II. But how, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. The intelligence unit designed exploding devices for secret agents operating in Nazi-occupied Europe. Now, one of the most effective devices was an exploding rat, which shoveled into boilers as well. But German factories, they were put out of action because rats would get in and they'd blow up. And only 150 rats were created, but the Germans believed that there were thousands, which forced the Nazis to divert vital resources to hunt and check rodents around factories. I'm just going to tell you how they did this. They shoved explosives up a rat's behind.
Oh. But it was a dead rat, and they then placed them in the coal so that, and in places where they thought that they would then be shoveled up, and if they saw a rat, a live rat, what they would do is they would shovel it up and stick it in the boiler quick. Yeah. So when they saw it, that's what happened, and that's how the explosions were so effective.
So they weren't, to clarify that, nobody was catching rats.
No rat, no live rat was injured in the making of the winning of this war.
Not quite true, because I imagine they killed the rat. I don't think they were looking for dead rats initially. Like Peter weren't there going, we can only use dead rats, right? And then again, but I take your point.
They had to have died of natural causes.
Yeah,
of old age. with all of these, to keep this war going so that the rats can get old enough for them to die. But also,
I'm starting to get itchy just thinking.
in the Far East as well, they used tins of fish oil or soy sauce, which had a secret bottom section with explosives hidden in them that were then smuggled onto Japanese supply ships, so that when the tins were cracked open by chefs, they would explode, which apparently was sinking numerous vessels in the final months of the war.
Oh,
so
genius.
Well, was it? So someone tell Chris Whitty, with all the tinned food he wants us to supply, that maybe we need to be a bit careful with what it looks like. Apparently, the camouflage section also hired makeup artists to create elaborate disguises for agents so they could avoid being rumbled when undercover in occupied Europe. Harley Street plastic surgeons broke noses and jaws to alter operatives' appearances before they went behind enemy lines so that they could blend in with crowds. I mean, that seems a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
Well, interesting though, isn't it? I mean, the things to do to win a war.
I mean, I wonder how much those plastic surgeons were being paid. You know, I think somebody had a stake in those plastic surgeons' operations. You know, it was another PEP scandal. I think.
I just think it just points.
Michelle Mone, eat your heart out.
I mean, we did things like the fake. Like, didn't we have those inflatable?
Well, there was the fake body.
Operation Mincemeat.
That was Operation Mincemeat.
Yeah,
that was so
it was a
fantastic.
brilliant movie.
And that did alter the course of the war.
So it was getting a dead body that was with them. We dressed up as a particular pilot, and then we put in their pocket fake documents,
secret documents,
which diverted the entire the entire Nazi operation away.
And they had to give them. They had to find the identity of someone who'd actually died, who looked like someone who had. It's. If anyone hasn't seen the movie, it's a brilliant representation of it.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. All right. Well, that just about with exploding rats. That just about brings us to the end. I'll just do a very quick summary of what we're getting on the front of the newspapers. 3 or 4 of the national newspapers are going in with the development about how the fire started in Switzerland. We've also, of course, got Trump set to step in over Iran is another one. And David Lammy wanting teenagers to sign up to be magistrates, and a few other bits and bobs knocking around as well. I wish you all a very, very happy weekend. Thank you to my wonderful panel. We'll see you Monday. That's for me.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to